Hello and welcome to the show. Before we begin, the usual. This is an out and about recording, so expect to hear some noise in the background cows, people passing by, cars driving on the road, all sorts of things. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to the topic for today's show. The reason why you're being ignored is probably because circumstances have changed. In other words, we're going to be looking at why people ghost you. Because there's some of you who wake up with the emotional angst every day. I sent out 5 proposals last week. I made 20 calls and I tried checking in at the office with two of my potential clients, but it looks like people are ghosting me all around. Is it me? What's the problem? What's going on? How can I fix it? So, this episode is just to reassure you that the reason why you're being ignored is probably because circumstances have changed. And it's not anything to do with you, anything that is fundamentally flawed. Because obviously, if circumstances have changed, then the very reason why people were talking with you in the first place is probably that reason is not there to continue the conversation anymore. Now, this is a mistake that every business person makes, that is taking ghosting personally. We shouldn't be taking it personally because sometimes it's you because of your personality problems, because of your hygiene problems, because of character flaws. Maybe you're rambunctious, maybe you're a bully, you don't understand personal space, those sorts of things. But that's a minority of people who have these issues, in business situations. And then rest assured that if these are in fact the problems, this is something that your husband has probably been telling you a lot, your wife probably has been telling you a lot, your mom, your brother, family members are probably already complaining about these issues. So if you don't have family members bugging you about stuff, your hygiene, your personality, your character flaws, things like that, then just rest assured that this is not, it's probably not a personal or a personality thing. But if your wife complains that you have a God complex, your mom complains that you're too stubborn, your children think you're a tyrant, let's say what else, on and on, then okay, it's possible that the reason why folks are ghosting you is probably because you're too much. You're too much to handle. And so people would rather just avoid you rather than having to deal with you or trying to put you in your place and things like that. So yeah, but then again, like I said, that's for minority of people in business situations. So for the average business person, the reason why you're being ghosted is usually tied to reasons around the value proposition or the business opportunity itself. So people are probably ghosting you because the math in the value proposition doesn't work anymore. In the beginning, they thought you were a really valuable person to do business with, and they probably thought that they'll be able to achieve X and Y results and things like that. And maybe as the conversation goes on, it becomes clear that okay, maybe you're not as valuable or as credible as you put yourself out to be, or maybe the value that they're going to receive from the transaction isn't as much as they thought. So in this case, it's deficiencies in the value proposition and not about you. And then sometimes it's about changes in the business opportunity itself. So I'll give a personal example and a recent one from 2023, that is this year, as at the time of making this episode. This is the 15th of May 2023. I can't remember when this happened, but it was in 2023 and early this year at that. I had reached out to someone recently. At the time, I had reached out to someone recently who had purchased a business. I had done some work for this person's predecessor, that's the person who had previously owned the business. And since the business asset, the location, the subject matter, it was a tech hub, an innovation and tech hub, tech incubation hub in Abuja. So the business is still the same, it's still in the same location. The kind of people that they're trying to attract is still the same. And so since everything was still intact and in the same location, I decided to reach out to the new owner to see if they'll be interested in continuing the same projects that had worked for, under the previous management, because I figured, look, everything is still the same. The goal is still going to be the same. They bought the business, but they're still going to want to bring awareness to the hub, and they're still going to want to increase the number of people that rent co-working spaces. So I figured it's a no-brainer. I've worked for the previous person. I might as well reach out to this new person and see how we can get some business going on. So, where was I? I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so everything was still the same. So I figured let me reach out to the new management. And I reached out, first of all, on LinkedIn DMs. And the reason why I did that was because, well, I got the phone number from the prior owner. But I've realized, or okay, rather, it suits my own personality to not hit up people totally cold. I like to send a message first so people know that I'm going to call. So I hit this dude up on LinkedIn, just introducing myself. This is where I got your phone number from. I'm going to call you. This is what I wanted to talk about. Blah blah blah. It always helps to name drop in these situations. So if you got a referral through a mutual contact, you mention, because that makes it increases some commonality between you guys. You guys have some shared connections, and then it helps to drop the resistance that is there in the beginning. So I sent out a LinkedIn message doing that, and I told him I was going to hit him up over the phone so that we could talk some more. And anyway, it turned out that the new owner is not a phone person. Remember in the previous episode where I was talking about the best way to do outreach, I mentioned that there is no best way, but rather you have to keep a flexible approach. So I lean a lot on the phone, and that's my preference. But I know that not everybody's a phone person, so the rest of the interactions that happened were over LinkedIn DM, because this person apparently is a LinkedIn DM person, because he said, "No, don't call. No need for emails. Let's just keep it here on LinkedIn DM." So I went with the flow. Okay, so the exchanges seemed to be going fine until I got to the point where I would propose a meeting to revive the strategy, revive the initiative, or come up with tweaks to the old strategy. And it was at that stage that they started going ghost. So my response, what I actually did, was that I took my calendar and I pushed it out for 3 months. But that was the wrong thing to do. What I should have done. Oh, by the way, I hope you guys can see that even though I have concrete and valid knowledge about sales and sales processes, sometimes I forget important steps and I make missteps. So it's normal. People make mistakes. So what I did was I pushed it out 3 months from the calendar, just give me time to think. But actually, I should have followed a much more laid out, clearer process. So what I should have done was to send a circumstances have changed message. Some people like to send the breakup message. Basically, the tone of the breakup message is, I've been trying to reach out with you, you're not responding again, so bye bye, I'm not calling you anymore. The spirit of the message is good because you're trying to get things off your plate, but the execution is poor. So rather, what I tell folks is, instead of sending a breakup message, send a circumstances have changed message, and it goes something like this: Hi. Well, it doesn't have to be high. Use your own verbiage. Use whatever you think is appropriate to the context. So my message would have been something like this: Hi, I tried reaching out again with no response. So because of that, I'm going to assume that circumstances have changed, or this initiative is no longer a priority. Is that the case? Question mark. And I leave the message like that. Some people don't like messages hanging that way. So, an alternative ending that I give to folks who don't like this hanging ending is to now wrap it up by saying, I won't be in touch again unless you choose to do so. So, either way, hit me up in the future if I can be of help professionally on anything you're working on. And then leave it like that. You've sent the message, so push it back in the calendar. And then after that, close the file if they don't get back in touch. Because you've sent a message now asking, are you guys still interested, or have circumstances changed? That's option A. If they don't respond, there's nothing you can do to get them back on the phone again or to get them back in the LinkedIn DMs. Just let it be. And the second one, where you don't leave the question hanging, but you put that whole thing there of, I'm not going to be in touch again unless you hit me up again. Let me know if I can be of help, professionally or business wise, anything you're working on. That's all you can do, really. If they don't respond to that, then just close the file. Don't spend too much time trying to guess about what is going on in their minds. You're not Professor Xavier. You're not a mind reader. You're not, what's her name? Phoenix. Phoenix in the X-Men. Is it Phoenix? Yeah, Jean Grey. Yes. So you're not Professor Xavier. You're not Professor. You're not Jean Grey. You're not the Scarlet Witch. It's not your skill set. So stop guessing. Now, in this case, as it turns out, eventually I saw photographs on LinkedIn, and it showed that the building was being massively revamped. They tore down the walls, they were adding this place, adding that place. And so it became obvious that the reason why they hadn't responded to my messages was because the subject matter itself is being changed. So you guys see that that's an example of what it is that I'm talking about. If you were in previous conversations with someone over a tech or incubation hub, how we're going to sell, how we're going to market, how we're going to increase the number of people that are renting office spaces, things like that, but you're now currently in the process of redesigning the building, either to restore it to a tech hub or maybe to change it to be something else, then quite frankly, there's no reason to continue the previous conversation because it doesn't suit your purpose anymore. Now, some of you are going to say, well, that's rude. The guy should have responded and told you. But I've already made a podcast episode on this. I think I made it last week on whether we should expect people to be polite to us. The truth of the matter is, yes, it would have been polite if you had responded, but we can't expect or demand that from everybody because people are busy. Sometimes they're not trying to be rude. It's just that you see it and you're like, I'll respond to that later. I'm late for picking up my kids, or I'm currently in a meeting. I'll respond to that later. And then you forget. So there are lots of reasons why it shows that, okay, message read. Or if you have those email receipt trackers, it will show that, okay, email delivered and email read. But there are lots of reasons why the person didn't get back to you. Because the guy could have opened it and he was like, oh, yes, that's true. Building is going to start next week. I should really let this guy know. Let's move this conversation to next week. But then while he's sitting down to type, the secretary could have come in and said, oh, Mr. Tayo, Engineer Ogedengbe is on line 2. You say, oh, Engineer Ogedengbe, put him through. You take the call from Engineer Ogedengbe, and then something else happens, and then you have to go and pick up your children, and then you come back to the office, and you're like, oh, okay, where was I? And then the person moves on to the most pressing matter that was there, and they could have forgotten to respond to my message. So, as a sales professional, I should have taken the responsibility to ask the questions and to try and influence the course of the relationship. So, the responsibility is on me. The responsibility is on you, dear listener of the show, and stop trying to figure out what it is that is going on. So, what do you do next when this happens to you? Because it happens to everybody. And it happened to you last month, last year, a few weeks ago. And guess what? It is still going to happen to you again. The only thing you can do is to reach out, try and confirm if they're interested, or try and confirm if there's a change in circumstances. Do this over WhatsApp, phone call, email, or whatever medium you guys have been using in the past. Just reach out and a simple message. Are you guys still interested? Have circumstances changed? That sort of thing. And after you do that, push it out a reasonable date on the calendar. If you think a reasonable date on the calendar is by 2 weeks, they should have gotten back to me, then push it out for 2 weeks. If you see the notification again, they haven't responded, you have done absolutely everything that you can. Retire the contact if they are not interested or if they haven't responded. You can't take it personally or speculate endlessly every time you're being snubbed or ghosted, in quote, because that takes too much emotional energy that you can transfer, that you can plow into the next proposal, into the next business deal in waiting. So, are you worried about being snubbed or ghosted constantly in your business? Is this a problem that you're facing? If you are, then connect with me on LinkedIn so that we can solve that problem and get our money right. The name and the email address are in the podcast profile. Also, remember, you can subscribe for free. Sales for the Nigerian Business Person Podcast. That's the name of the show. I'm available on any podcast player of your choice, especially Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple iTunes, Pocket Casts, Anchor, and Overcast. Also, remember to connect with me on LinkedIn, whether you have this problem or not. It would be nice to hear from you guys. The name is Tabashima Ayede, and yes, Tabashima rhymes with Hiroshima. The spelling is in the podcast profile. So thanks for listening. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.